I make the best coffee. I do. It's a fact. You can argue with me if you want. Come over, I'll make you some coffee. Everything's gonna be great, right? Welcome to Avanza Latino. I'm Carlos Rodriquez, I'm your host, and we're gonna talk about some stuff, but first, what are we doing here? Well, we are raising the awareness of Hispanic and Latinx people who are doing fantastic, beautiful, creative, entrepreneurial things here in Estados Unidos. So, welcome, America. Buenos dias, amigos y amigas. It's great to have you here. This is my first interview. I spoke with Carlos Herrera. He is the founder of Herrera Environmental Consultants. He's a Cubano refugee who came here when he was 4 years old, and he built this company from nothing. And they are involved with, just to name a few things, aquatic ecology, restoration of wetlands and rivers and surface water in Washington State, Montana, actually all over the world. They've worked as far away as China. They now have 5 offices. He's retired, hanging out on his cool little farm in Olympia, but I got to talk to him. So, thank you for joining me for my first interview with Carlos Herrera. Oh, another thing, I do not know what's going on with my hair, homie. Seriously, it's like a combination of I washed it too soon before the interview, and then like the barometric pressure changed or something, and then there was a breeze, and then some seagulls flew by. So just don't pay attention to it. Watch Carlos. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Buenos dias, mi gente. I'm Carlos Rodriquez. Welcome to Avanza Latino. Today, I am fortunate to be sitting here sharing space and time with Carlos Herrera, the founder of Herrera Environmental Consultants. Sometimes I may say Herrera, sometimes I may say Herrera, because sometimes I'm Rodriquez and sometimes I'm Rodriquez because I'm an American Latino and I code switch all the time. That's just how I talk. Cool. Hi, Carlos. It's great to be here.
Great to be here, too.
Full disclosure, in my other life, I am a contract scuba diver, and I have worked for your company maybe for a decade or so. You are a Cubano refugee, is that right?
That's right, yeah. My family was the first Cuban refugees to come to the state of Washington.
The first Cuban refugees to come to the state of Washington.
Yeah, we left Cuba in 1961.
1961.
And we, actually what happened was that the Cuban government at that time was trying to discourage people from leaving, so they gave my 5 older brothers and sisters their exit visas, and myself and my parents were not awarded my exit visas, and so my parents shipped the 5 kids off to the United States by themselves between the ages of 8 and 15.
Really?
Yeah, and then we followed about 3 or 4 months later. But
and where did they stay when they arrived?
they came right to here to Washington. My uncle had left Cuba in the 50s to study for the priesthood and ended up becoming a medieval philosopher and was teaching. He had just gotten a job at St. Martin's College in Lacey, Washington. And so he found homes for all the kids to stay in. And then, like I said, 3 or 4 months later, my parents and I and my younger brother came.
Wow, that's quite a thing for a 4-year-old.
That's our immigration story. Yeah.
That is really great. So, Herrera Environmental Consultants. To have started this organization, you must have had a passion for the environment.
Well, I did, yeah. I actually started it while I was in graduate school at the University of Washington.
Yeah.
So I was in my last year of graduate school, and I had been working with the Seattle Water Department on some water quality projects, and they had just gotten a grant from the EPA to study water quality issues in the city, and they asked me if I wanted to run this research project for them at the water department. And the only thing they said is they couldn't hire me as an employee, but if I got my business license, they would hire me as a consultant. And so I went right out, got my business license, and started started the company right there.
And what were you studying at the time at UW?
I was environmental engineering.
Environmental engineering.
Yeah, and focusing on water issues.
Yeah. So a grant from the EPA, that sounds like a thing of the past these days, right? That doesn't really happen anymore, does it?
That doesn't happen much anymore.
Yeah. Herrera has a list of core values that I found.
Hope you're not going to ask me to say what those are.
No, I wrote them down.
Oh, good.
I wrote them down. I know they just live inside you, right? These core values. You don't have to. This is how you move through life. Insist on integrity, objectivity, and environmental ethics in our work. Treat each other and our clients with respect and dignity always. Act as stewards of the environment upon which we depend. Research and outreach, learn and teach. Now, I've worked with a number of Herrera employees over the year, and every one of them seems to really embody these. This is, what do you call this? A credo? Is this a just kind of a way to approach a company this size? Because Herrera now has 5 offices. Yes, you started off as just you, and now there's 5 offices.
Yeah. And we have, I think we're up to 90 employees. We were up to about 120 before the Great Recession. And then when a lot of government funding was cut out, then we lost some employees, but built it back up.
Yeah.
Those are really our core values, and there's something that we've strove for since the beginning. We've always tried to hire people that had that same core environmental ethic, and the I guess what I like to call the love for doing real science, and being good ethical scientists.
Right.
Yeah.
And like a personal love, which I've noticed in everybody, to be out in the field.
Yes.
And not stuck behind a desk. Everybody, most of your employees are biologists and scientists of all
some engineers.
And some engineers.
Yeah.
And I know all of them sort of are not afraid to get their hands dirty. They're not afraid to go tromping through the mud. And the work I did specifically was limnological surveys. We were working on invasive aquatic plant species in freshwater lakes in Washington. And
before I retired, I would take part on dive teams and doing dive surveys of outfalls here in Puget Sound, and went and got my hands dirty on waste surveys and taking samples, and so not only running the company but also getting out in the field. And it goes all the way through the entire staff. Our president now, Mike Spillane, he does the same. He's out in the field quite often and enjoys the field work and enjoys getting out in nature. So
and you sold the company a couple of years ago to the employees?
Yeah, when I started to look at retirement, I wanted to really give it back to the employees that helped make the company, because it wasn't just me, it was everybody else that was here and had the expertise and were good scientists and good engineers that helped build this enterprise. And so I could have, if I would have sold to a competitor, a big multinational firm, I probably could have gotten twice the amount of money that I got as selling it to the employees. But what we did is we set up a employee stock ownership plan where it was a 3-way deal, where the bank loaned the money to the company to buy my shares, and then I gave my shares to a pension fund, an employees-owned pension fund, for that, and then the money that they paid me from the bank guaranteed the bank loan, so it was no cost to the employees whatsoever for them to buy it.
Wow.
And then through the company profits, as the company made contributions to the pension fund, it would release shares to those companies and pay me off, and then eventually it all basically worked out. So it's essentially sold it to the employees, but without the employees having to pay anything for it.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's a pretty magnanimous gesture on your part. Did it feel that way?
I did okay. I mean, yeah.
Sure.
No, I mean,
Sure,
I got my money out of it.
I'm not trying to get too political here, but I mean, wealth hoarding seems to be
Yeah.
one of the major problems in the world.
Right.
Maybe the major problem in the world at large.
Well, ESOPs are a good mechanism for, closely held companies like this to be able to pass on the legacy and still get, some return.
Yeah.
A fair return for what they owned. So.
Wow.
And I think everybody made out good. The company,
Yeah.
the employees who got the ownership, I did fairly well. I got a fair price for my company, and the bank got some interest out of the deal. So
That's
it's
great.
It's a really win-win-win kind of a system.
I want to ask you, because the first time I spoke with you on the phone, I was like, so on and so forth, Avanza Latino and this, and you said, oh, I'm a blue-eyed Latino, and I want to ask you a little bit about, how do I best phrase this? Sort of the Hispanic cultural identity in America, having lived here most of your life, if that was a thing at all.
Oh no, it was a big part of my life. I mean, I'm what I like to call a true bilingual because I speak English with a American accent.
Right.
Y hablo español como un cubano cualquiera. ¿Sí?
Yo hablo un poquito español y muy lento y malo.
So yeah, I have a Cuban accent when I talk Spanish and an American accent when I speak English.
That's great.
So, but yeah, growing up, I grew up with our Cuban identity, and then when I went to college, it kind of expanded to a larger Latino identity because I spent a lot of time with the Latino community at the University of Washington, and with the a lot of time with the Chicanos that were there, and with the students that came up from Puerto Rico and Venezuela and Colombia. So most of my time, my I guess non-study time was spent with Latinos.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And when I moved here, I've been here 30 years now, I did not expect to find a large Latinx community in Seattle. And there are a lot of us in the entire state.
Yeah.
I mean, you drive across central Washington and all you get are Spanish radio stations,
Yeah.
in the kind of the breadbasket of Washington there. So yeah, it's pretty great. And a lot of it's different than the culture I grew up in. I'm from the Southwest, like northern New Mexico, southern Colorado. My family's been there, 300 years or more. And then I came here, and there's so many different Latino cultures that I wasn't even really in touch with.
Yeah.
Growing up where I grew up, so it's been quite a treat. Do you say Cuba or Cuba?
Cuba.
Cuba.
I say Cuba when I'm speaking American, and I say Cuba when I'm speaking Cuban.
Right on. This is also the code switching episode, everybody. Oh man, that's great. How's retired life on the farm? What's happening on the farm?
We just had baby goats born last month.
Goats are the coolest.
Yeah.
I love baby goats.
So we're milking a lot right now.
Who doesn't?
The garden's planted. And so,
Yeah.
My next project is building the dock out on the lake. So
Yeah. Nice. You're going to get a barge out there with some pile drivers and
Yeah.
clang, 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 like the whole city. Yeah. Cool. Knowing what we know about the ethical standards you've brought to your company, do you have any parting words of wisdom for humanity?
I would wish that we would get off the stick and address global warming and climate change and
Right.
and an aspect that's often not talked about and overlooked with regards to climate change and global warming and CO2 releases is the acidification of our oceans,
Right.
which in my opinion might be a bigger issue than
We're wrecking the food
warming.
chain.
Yeah, we're potentially
Yes.
going to wreck the food chain. So
Yeah.
I mean, we really need to address that as a species.
That's great. Thank you so much for being very specific about that. And I think it's been an honor to be here chatting with you. And I'm so pleased that, here in the liberal left corner of the country, we can often be like, well, I sort my recycling so everything's fine. But some people have this notion that why even go through the trouble if everything's all jacked up anyway.
Right.
But I also think there's another element to it, which is that we know what we stand for when our head hits the pillow every night. And you've made an enormous impact in how you chose to be in the world with a very successful company.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
A pleasure.
Lovely talking to you, Carlos. Thank you all very much. Adios.